Welcome back to season 3 of Being Unapologetically Authentic with your host, Jean Tien. This season, we explore the concept of truth. Each one of my guests has been handpicked by me for their powerful and inspiring stories of how they've been able to remove the social conditioning behind success and start to truly live that authentic, successful lifestyle. I hope that their stories will inspire you to start to do the same and find what success truly means to you. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Being Unapologetically Authentic with me, your host, Jean Tien. And today I have a very special guest with me and with us. Her name is J Weiss, and she is a dear friend of mine whom we actually met last year. And it was at the Go All In Speaking Fest. And Lisa was actually another feature speaker at the event. And it was funny because Lisa and I didn't really talk to each other until we were leaving the event. It was literally the last day. And I was like, want to catch a ride together? And she's like, yeah. And then so we bonded in the cab ride to the airport, and we've maintained touch since then. And Lisa has become a very near and dear friend and confidant. So I'm very happy for her to graciously accept my invite to join us today. So welcome, Lisa.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm so happy to have the invitation.
Thanks so much. So I didn't really give a brief bio, which I normally do, but I really wanted you to go into it and share with our audience who you are, what you're about, and we kind of will take it from there.
Cool. So again, my name is J Weiss, and I have been in the field of communication for, I won't tell you how many years, because that will just, let you know how old I am. And I've been doing coaching individuals and groups for probably the last 13 years. And for me, it's always been about the internal conversations that we're having with ourselves and the external conversations that we're having with others. And in the last few years, I've really focused on what I call leader self empowerment. And so helping people to discover and rediscover the leader that lives inside of them. And I do that by helping them to self-identify one of three states that runs under the surface that informs the choices that we're making. And layered on top of that, I do a lot of work with breath. So using the 4 elemental breaths, helping people to connect with their body through the sensory cues that present. And of course, because my background is in communications, it's about the vibration of words. And so layering all the breath, the sensory cues, and the words, and how it all works together to inform the choices that we're making.
That's so awesome. And I think I had my first experience with what you do as we were chit-chatting in the airport waiting for our flights, and we were just talking about kind of our hopes and dreams for the future, what we're really focused on. And and normally when I share something, I don't think people really catch when I have a pause or when I have like something that I withhold, but you caught it immediately. You're like, there was something there. And I was like, oh yeah, definitely there was something there. And then and so with Lisa, if you are thinking you can get away with things, you can absolutely not get away with anything. She catches like the most subtle of things. So, and as a coach, I think that that's just amazing because she won't let you go and kind of like misrepresent things to yourself, right? To tell lies to yourself so that it makes your life easier, but not necessarily better in the sense of progress. But Lisa, I think the one thing I also wanted to highlight too is that you have 2 books out, right? And I think you are a best-selling author. So you have one book out, and then your second book, which you wrote by yourself, explains all about the method that you use with regards to the connection of breath and communications and the body connection.
Right, absolutely. So it's called Breath, Sensations, Words. right? Keep it simple. And basically, what it does is it walks you through the four elemental breaths. And I give you a little bit of background about what each breath is about, how it can be used, the good and shadow sides of each of the breaths. And then I move into the sensory cues in the body. And so what happens in your head, what happens in your, upper, what happens in your lower, and what the things that we easily dismiss in terms of sensory cue, and introducing people to the fact that it's all information. And if we pay attention, our body is constantly talking to us and telling us things. And then the last piece, again, is the words and around the vibrations that words hold. And again, it's introducing people to start to slow down and pay attention to some of the words and some of the everyday words that we use that we don't realize the impact it's having on how our life is being lived. And so it really is, it's a beautiful book if you're starting a journey, if you're in a journey, if you're a coach and you're looking for something to help your clients supplement the work that you're doing. And so it could be used in many different ways.
And then can you give us what the four different types of breaths are, and then maybe an example with one of them that you've used or you've identified through the work with your client?
Absolutely. So, and it's interesting, right? Because I live this, it never even dawned on me that people didn't know that there were four breaths. What do you mean you don't know that there are four breaths? And so there's earth, air, water, and fire. And so very quickly, the earth breath is what is the grounding breath. And it's the breath that we use when we're upset, when we're angry, when we're frustrated, and we want to sort of calm ourselves down. And so you inhale and you hold on the exhale, right? And it calms us down. The air breath is the opposite to the earth breath in that you inhale and you hold on the inhale, and air moves a lot of it. It invites us to consider our beliefs, values, and attitudes around things. And, and so it creates that space for us to notice what's the belief I hold about this particular thing. The water breath is all about flow. And so that's actually just, there's no stopping on the inhale or exhale. You're doing your natural flow of breathing. And here's the thing, most of us, we think that we breathe with water all the time. But in fact, what we have is an extended air breath because we hold our breath all the time. Most of us do. And so discovering your natural rhythm of breathing for that water breath can be challenging for people, when they think about it. And the final breath is the fire breath. And it's one of my favorites, which is something that we don't typically use. And it's an energizing breath. It moves all that high intensity emotions that we go through, whether it could be joy, it could be anger, it could be frustration, it could be whatever it is, that intense motion. And so you basically inhale, you bring your arms up to about, your eyes or nose level, and then you push it all out. And so it's a great breath for moving through those intense moments so that you can actually then discover what sits beneath the surface of it. And it works really well with children if they're having temper tantrums or whatnot. And if you start engaging the fire breath, they will automatically start to mimic you and the situation will dissipate. And so that's part of the using the breath too. It's becoming aware of how am I breathing, how is someone else breathing, and how we can actually shift a conversation or a situation based on what's happening, kind of thing. So yeah,
Yeah. And
that's
I love that you say that, the biomimicry, because I think breath, and it didn't even dawn on me until now, but breath is very much like a yawn, in the sense that when other people are doing it and you're conscious of it, like you end up doing the same thing, because as you were going through the four, like especially grounding, because I love the grounding breath, because for me, I stay in very shallow breathing and holding my breath So the grounding for me is particularly comforting. So as you were doing it, I was like, even the explaining of it, just like, if I say yawn, 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 our listeners out there may be like yawning right now and asking me to stop. But I think breath is also very similar to that concept as well.
Absolutely, because we're humans and we mimic each other. If we are audible enough in the space of someone else and breathe a certain way, they'll make. So often when I'm traveling on a plane and if somebody's got a baby that's like crying and they're all nervous and they're trying to get the baby to be quiet, and if the baby is within earshot of me, I will breathe a certain way. I might do the earth breath because it's grounding. And if the baby can hear me, the baby begins to calm down as well. And they never have an idea or a clue as to why the baby calmed down.
Right. That's so amazing. That's so awesome. So with this mind body connection, right, with breath as well, I think you have become, through your work and through your learning process, very much attuned to what your body is telling you often. And I think so many times we as a society almost numb ourselves to that message that we often get from our own bodies because we think we know better through our brain. So, very common example is your body is tired and tired. And I know that, like, as somebody who's very like go, go, go all the time, I will put it off as like, I'll rest later. I'll rest later. At least that's what I used to do. Or if, oh, I can't, I have to go to the gym. If I don't, it's just, me being lazy or something like that. And it wasn't until I think in the past year that I really started to honor what my body is telling me and to let go of the guilt that our head is telling us to. So I know you've gone through your own getting to know of your body and the messages that it's telling you. So could you share a little bit about your journey with that? And I think ultimately I would love to get our audience to hear, or if you can share, like, share with our audience how you found your way into what your body is telling you in terms of fertility and the challenges and what the truth is really behind what our bodies are telling us along when it comes to our fertility as well.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. It's a topic near and dear to me because I went through two IVF processes unsuccessfully. And it was only on the other side of it, probably a few years later, where I actually was able to put it all together. And so going through the process was very daunting, um, only because there was no explanation as to why I could not conceive and get pregnant, and all the thoughts that went with that around inadequacy, unable to do the one thing that I'm designed to do. So questioning my womanhood and all of those things. And it really, it's such an emotional roller coaster. And my body, it wasn't until afterwards that I realized that I was so tightly wound that there was no space for me to conceive inside of myself. And of course, I never would have even thought of that at the time, in terms of how my body was actually trying to tell me this isn't going to work because you're just not in a place for it to work, kind of thing. So it's really quite fascinating when you think the intelligence that our body has, and if we're willing to pay attention and listen to it, what it is it's telling us that we should and or shouldn't be doing, or at least giving us an invitation to reframe how we're moving through something, right? So yeah.
And I love the fact that you're willing to talk about it so openly. It's so I mean, even though it really shouldn't be courageous, it really is courageous for women to come out and say the one thing that we were kind of put on this earth to do, we couldn't do, right? Because, that is the one thing that is the main responsibility of women is to give birth. And, depending on what politics you hold, there are certain terminologies for females today as child bearers. Like that's what we're known for, I guess, right?
Right,
So,
right.
all these, we're not even going to get into that, but that is how certain people are known, that if you can give birth, you're known as a child bearer. I've talked about my own fertility issues on season 1. I've had other guests come in to share their own fertility issues. And so for me, it's particularly important that we start normalizing these conversations, because the ability for our body to give birth or not really has no determination in terms of the value that we have in this world, right?
Mhm.
And then so I'd love to hear for you, because I think you've come to that place too in terms of accepting that you are worth more than just your ability to have a child. And I'd love for you to hear, how did you come to peace with your body and allow for your body to be what it is, right? Without blaming it, without guilt, without a resentment or lingering anger or pain or hurt or etc. for the journey that you've been on, and or for the inability to conceive the child.
Yes, and I mean, and that in itself was a journey on its own, to get to that space of being able to know my body is highly intelligent, and everything it does is in my best interest. I certainly did not think that when I was going through the in vitro process, and in fact, I was so hard on myself in terms of some of the conversations. And it was such a lonely place to be. Even my closest friends, even my husband at the time, had no clue what was going on inside of me, because it was all about, okay, put on the brave face, and we're going to do this, and you don't want to be the naysayer. And yet inside of myself, I was just, it was warrior beating myself up for not being able to do, like you said, the one thing that I should be able to do, and not even having a reason. Right. Every test that they did came back normal. And I remember even the second time we went through it, everything looked fantastic and everything looked wonderful. And then they went in to get the eggs and they were expecting like 10 and there were 2. And the doctor was completely baffled. And so that's why now I want to engage in conversations with women who are going through this process, because it is a process that we go through alone. And I think it's important for us to know that we're not alone, and that there are people that we can talk to. At the time, there wasn't anybody in my circle that was going through it. And I was even resentful for the people in my world that had children, and it was so easy for them. And yeah, so it wasn't like I thought that I could confide it to anybody. And so I think it's really, really important to create a space for women to have these conversations, and have them in a context of knowing that you're not broken, and that there's nothing that needs to be fixed. And if we can come to understand the intelligence of what might be sitting under the surface, that might allow us to relax into the process more, which then could be lead to a different outcome. I actually helped coach a girlfriend of mine in the last 2 years through the process. And as they were going through it, they were engaging in conversations with me. And when they were supposed to go to start the injections, they changed their mind, and then they got pregnant on their own completely. Like it was just,
So awesome.
it was just beautiful. And of course, being in conversation throughout, it changed how they moved through the process, which gave them a very different result, and they were able to conceive naturally at the end of the day. So yeah.
So, putting what you had said earlier before about your own journey and what you're sharing now about your experience with your client and how you coach them through it, it's like you help create that space that allows for whatever will happen to happen. And if that means the baby, then that's great. If that means IVF, then that's great. But it takes away this force of energy that works against us or against our natural whatever it's supposed to be, in terms of the fertility situation. I'll call it situation that we're in.
Absolutely, because and this is where again the breaths and the words and the sensory cues, our body is always talking to us, and so to be able to be in real time when she was going through moments of doubt or whatnot, to be able to go, okay, well let's engage an air breath and have a conversation about the belief that's lingering beneath the surface that you might not even be aware of until. And this is the power of breath. Each breath has a job and a role and invites new information to come into our awareness. And when that new information comes into our awareness, our body actually processes it. And it's no longer an issue. And with that, it's relaxed.
Yeah.
And so, and it's, there's never a guarantee. However, I believe that creating a different space and knowing that nothing you say is good, bad, right, or wrong creates ease,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. And an acceptance, right? So that there's never, for those where it didn't work out at the end, and I'm not saying it won't, but there's an acceptance that that's what was meant for this particular situation or whatever it is. And I think it allows for, yeah.
Absolutely. Because, at the end of the day, for me, what I reconciled with was I'm here to birth something else. And, and it makes me an even better aunt. Right, to my nieces and nephews. Yeah. And noticing, how we define mother and how we define parenting, and knowing it takes a village, and to know that I am part of many villages with many children is exceptional. I have many children in my world that I go, oh, well, I might not give birth, yet I know I have impact in their life. And that's beautiful.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. And then, so what is it that our audience can do? Where can they reach out to you? And what I know you mentioned that you're putting together a program at this point. So, are you able to share anything about the program with the audience? I know you have a survey out to be able to kind of better hone the program. So if you can tell us all about it, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm in the research and development phase right now. And so I do have a survey that I've created for women who are going through, two and or more, who have been through 2 and or more IVF processes, just so that I can understand their experience, because it's been a long time since I was in it, and technology has changed and there's so many different things out there. So I really want to hear from the women who have recently been through it or thinking about going through it again, in terms of what they're struggling with and, where they're at, so that I can actually create a process that will actually work for them. And I'm going to be launching a beta, with a small group of women, to make sure that the program meets and exceeds their expectations, right, in terms of being able to help them.
That's awesome. And then, so we will include the link of the survey in the show notes, and so that people can click on it and then go in. And then if they just want to have a chat with you, Lisa, how do they connect with you?
Well, they can reach me through my website at www.lisajweiss.com. And I'm also on all of the social media platforms. So you can find me on TikTok, and you can find me on Instagram, and you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can find me on Facebook. And if you just put in Lisa J Weiss, I should pop up, or LJ Weiss, I should pop up. And so I'm always, always happy to engage in a conversation. And yes, please direct message me if you're interested in finding out more, perhaps being part of the beta group. And there are other things that I do as well. So
Awesome.
please do reach out.
Awesome. So we will include those links in there as well so that people can connect with you. And then one last question that I've been asking all of my guests on this season is, what is the truth behind your success?
Ooh, well, that's an interesting question. Truth behind my success. And it's interesting because I'm going, am I successful? How do I define success? And for me, it's all about community. And knowing for so long, I did things on my own and thought that I had to carry the burden of everything on my own. And so I think for me, the truth of my success is really the community that I built around me.
Yeah.
That's there to support me, that's there to challenge me, and give me, applaud me when I do well, and commiserate with me when I don't do as well. So yeah, I think for me, the secret of success is definitely community.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa, for being a guest on the show. And to my audience, thank you so much for staying with me in season 3. This will be the last episode of the season. However, I will be coming back with season 4, so stay tuned. And if you are looking to fill your time and you're craving for more of being unapologetically authentic, don't hesitate to go back to season 1 and 2. There's so much good stuff in there too. And there's also Lisa, and so you can reach out to her and any of my great guests that have been on this show. And so we will talk to you in just a few months coming. Bye, guys.